Your Voice, Shropshire Disability Network Newsletter, December 2011. Part 1. Telford Centre Rotary hears how and why SDN began. SDN Press and Publicity Officer Ruby Hartshorn was recently invited to speak at Telford Centre Rotary Club about our work and how SDN came into being. Ruby explained that we have two prime tools, a website providing a wealth of information and a monthly newsletter that's produced online, in print and as audio on YouTube. Not everyone has a computer or is proficient or comfortable with IT, so the recently introduced print version particularly has non-IT readers in mind, she explained. She went on to tell the Rotarians that much work for SDN is going on in Telford and that the network will hold its first meeting at Meeting Point House on the 8th of March. Ruby took with her one of the Sony Bloggy camcorders bought from the proceeds of the Cheese and Wine fashion show held in July. This enabled her to explain why SDN needs finance for equipment, as well as running costs such as hire and insurance. It was good to answer questions and to receive good feedback, said Ruby. Proceeds from the Telford Central Rotary Club Burns Night are being shared between SDN and Water Straws. We are really grateful to Telford Centre Rotary Club, and I look forward to attending their Burns Night and meeting up with everyone again. Landmark victory for disabled men in battle for justice. High Court rules. Cuts policy is unlawful. Consultation inadequate. Lawyer says, quality of life is now a central issue. Consultations must be genuine. Council must restore services it cut. The ruling has prevented potentially devastating cuts from going ahead. Other councils must recognise the national implications of the ruling. Two severely disabled residents from the Isle of Wight have won a legal challenge against the local council. Their lawyers say it sends a very clear message to all councils in England and Wales considering cutting social care services. The judge, Mrs. Justice Lang, said the council failed even to comply with its own internal guidance on how to assess the impact of its new policy. The consultation document provided insufficient information to enable those consulted to give intelligent consideration and an intelligent response. The action was brought by public law experts at legal firm Irwin Mitchell on behalf of the families of the disabled residents, whom the court ruled could only be known by their initials, JM and NT. Both rely heavily on services to provide the 24-hour care they desperately need. Lawyer Alex Rook from the firm said, "This landmark victory sends out a very clear message to all councils in England and Wales. If a council seeks to make cuts to its budget for adult social care, it cannot do so by only meeting certain needs designed to keep someone safe, but neglecting their overall quality of life." The judgment also makes it very clear that a thorough and full consultation process is not carried out when considering proposed cuts to services to disabled adults. The courts will quash the policy. Suffering from severe autism and brain damage, JM struggles to communicate with anyone but his parents. He needs support with all areas of his daily life and lives with his parents, who were reported by the court to develop. He has atypical autism and a learning disability. He is described as highly vulnerable and anxious, and he has communication difficulties, and so needs to be supported by people who understand his way of communicating. NT's mother, with whom he lives at the weekend, brought this case out of concern that the council's policy would have a potentially devastating effect on NT's quality of life. Both men and their families rely heavily on the council to provide the 24-hour care they need. Handing down her full judgment at the Royal Courts of Justice, Mrs. Justice Lang declared that the Isle of Wight's adult social care policy would have to be quashed for two reasons: that the policy designed to meet the needs of disabled adults was itself unlawful, that the council failed to have regard to the need to promote disability equality under Section 49A of the Disability Discrimination Act 1995 when it set the policy. Alex Rook said, "The council had very little information about the impact this would have on people's lives when it took this decision. The reality is that the council simply did not know what the effects would be, other than how much money would be saved." This has been taken from www.irwinmitchell.com. Health Watch England gets local. Telford and Wrekin Link is urging people to come and help us develop your local health watch at a meeting on Tuesday the 6th of December at either 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. in Meeting Point House, Telford Town Centre. The meeting will give people more information on the development of Telford and Wrekin Health Watch and help to identify some people who will work with Link to establish the local health watch and ensure that people in the area have the best possible organisation to represent them in the health and social care issues. Link asks that people should contact its office on 01952 614 180 or contact Catherine at c.pert@staffs.ac.uk to confirm attendance. What is Health Watch? The Health and Social Care Bill, which is currently progressing through Parliament, will establish local Health Watch organisations in every part of England on the 1st of October 2012. At the same time, it is intended to establish a national organisation called Health Watch England. The government intends that each local health watch will be commissioned by the local authority and that Health Watch England will be a statutory committee of the Care Quality Commission. There are 4 proposed functions of each local health watch: to provide information and signposting for the public on health or social care, to visit hospitals, care homes and other places providing health or social care, to represent the views and interests of patients and the public in commissioning health and care services, to engage with the wider community and patient and care organisations. Local Health Watch organisations will have statutory powers which will include right of enter and view to health and social care premises, membership of the local Health and Wellbeing Board and the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and the ability to raise issues of concern with those bodies, as well as with the Care Quality Commission and the NHS Commissioning Board. Telford and Wrekin Council and Telford and Wrekin Link are working together as one of the Pathfinder Health Watch groups and in order to take this work forward locally. Meeting to hear of World Work. The next SDN quarterly open meeting will be on Thursday the 8th of December at Mearside Community Centre in Shrewsbury, SY2 6LH, from 10:30 till 1. The guest speaker will be Matthew Gilbert of the Woodford Foundation on Shropshire helping young disabled people around the world. The foundation works to help deaf children and young people overseas. This talk explains its work and how it links to the foundation's roots in Shropshire. Shropshire event on funding. Shrewsbury Town Football Club's Greenhouse Meadow will host the Shropshire Infrastructure Partnerships Sustain and Survive New Approaches to Funding event on the 6th of December. Starting at 9:15 a.m. and closing at 1:45 p.m, the event aims to help organisations adapt to the changing funding environment and will also focus on wider strategies on how to survive in the current economic climate. It will include an update on the government's current funding streams and programmes, one-to-one advice sessions with a funding advisor, and workshops including Don't Waste Your Funding and Effective Sponsorship. The number of places is limited, and to book please go to www.shropshirevcs.org.uk/funding. Advertising roles at SDN. Shropshire Disability Network is looking for a highly motivated advertising coordinator. SDN needs a capable individual willing to build relationships with businesses and organisations sympathetic to the aims of the network. Following a successful voluntary trial period, a payment based on productivity may be available, subject to agreement with the SDN Management Committee, to the successful candidate or candidates. Please submit your CV together with a letter setting out how you might approach the task of securing a sustainable revenue stream from advertising and sponsorship and boosting the circulation of this newsletter. You will be required to demonstrate your effectiveness and your understanding of the challenges faced by third sector organisations. Advertising assistant needed. SDN is also looking for a talented, well-organised volunteer to support our advertising and sponsorship activity. You will work closely with our newsletter editor and the advertising coordinator to develop solid relationships with sympathetic businesses and not-for-profit organisations. Ombudsman backs complaint against Shropshire Council. A Shropshire man who won a complaint to the local government ombudsman about Shropshire Council's actions over care home fees is now seeking to alert families of other elderly or disabled care home residents who face the same issues. Glyn Banks said it took 11 months to obtain final approval of full funding for his 90-year-old mother. It was confirmed in January 2011, in the week that she died. Mr Banks says he applied to Shropshire Council for funding in February 2010, at which time his mother was paying £487 a week out of her savings from the sale of the family home. The money was running out. Although the council carried out a financial assessment confirming that the funding for her care placement would become the responsibility of the council at the beginning of May, when her resources fell below the funding threshold, a needs assessment was not carried out until June, he said. This established that his mother should not be moved, but the council only agreed to fund her at the minimum rate of £362 a week. We would have to pay a top-up fee of £125 a week, or she would have to move to any available cheaper care home placement in Shropshire. Mr Banks said he went through the council's complaints procedure. This dragged on, but at no point did the council offer to take over the interim payment of the care home fees, as it should have done by law. Eventually, I threatened to go to the press, and suddenly, without any adequate explanation, the council changed its mind and agreed to fund my mother's placement in full, he said, but the contract was not signed for 2.5 months. In March, Mr Banks complained to the local government ombudsman regarding the 11th month delay, stating that he considered it an attempt to blackmail him into paying £125 a week top-up fee, which he could not afford. He also raises the possibility that other relatives could be affected in the same way. The Ombudsman's interim report into his complaint found the council guilty of maladministration for the 11th month delay. But more importantly, the Ombudsman has informed me in a separate letter that as a result of my expression of concern regarding other relatives, the Ombudsman noticed a number of cases that bore similarities to my own, and took the apparently highly unusual step of sending the Assistant Ombudsman for Adult Social Care along with a special investigator to investigate the council and its practices in June this year, Mr Banks said. I have been informed that specifically the Ombudsman has requested that Shropshire Council checks all existing residential care service users' cases for unlawfully imposed third-party contributions. It could be that dozens of residents may be affected. Mr Banks added that 2 of the county's MPs had taken up the case on behalf of himself and other worried constituents. Chronic underfunding. The private medical group Bupa seems an unlikely ally for Mr Banks's cause, but its chief executive, Ray King, has called for chronic underfunding of the care home system to be addressed urgently. Bupa has its own agenda, which has little to do with the anxieties of families, but its concerns resonate with those of Mr Banks. Ray King warned that the number of care home places in the UK will fall unless operators get fairer fees. About 70% of Bupa's 18,000 care residents in its more than 300 homes are paid for by local authorities. Councils pay well over half of England's 390,000 care home residents. Mr King said operators are seeing a fall in fees as authorities' budgets come under pressure. The average council fee increase for 2010-11 was 0.7% and is currently 0.3% for 2011-12. There must be a real terms increase in funding, he said, with inflation running at 4.2%. This equated to a real term reduction, especially as costs were all rising fast. This has been taken from BBC News Business News and has been edited. Let them die. Shrewsbury Hospital among those that have secretly followed Do Not Revive policy. Hospitals have been making secret use of Do Not Resuscitate orders, an investigation has found, and Royal Shrewsbury Hospital has been one of them. The findings emerged in spot checks of 100 hospitals undertaken by the Care Quality Commission, an official watchdog. The orders record a decision made in advance that a patient's life should not be saved if their heart stops. On one ward, 1/3 of DNR orders were issued without consultation with the patient or their family, according to the NHS's own records. At another hospital, junior doctors freely admitted that the forms were filled out by medical teams without the involvement of patients or relatives. Under medical guidelines, the orders should only be issued after senior staff have discussed the matter with the patient's family. A form signed by 2 doctors is then placed in the patient's notes to record what decision has been taken. A charity for the elderly, Action on Elder Abuse, said the disclosures were evidence of euthanasia by the back door. At least 5 hospitals were found by the CQC to be in breach of medical guidance regarding consultation with families. Documented cases include, at the Royal Shrewsbury Hospital, run by Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital Trust, a patient was labelled as DNR based on an old medical notes from a previous admission, despite the fact their health had improved. Inspectors who visited Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham found no evidence that any of the patients whose files were marked DNR had been informed about the decision, nor their relatives told. Hospitals are not supposed to put the documents in any patient's files until they have been filled in case a blank or half-completed form is mistaken for an order not to resuscitate, as a patient enters cardiac arrest. In 2009, heart attack victim Peter Clark was left to die at Derby Hospitals Trust after clerical staff inserted a DNR form into his notes. An hour too late, staff realised the DNR order was blank. The QCQ said that 1 in 5 NHS trusts it inspected were failing patients so badly that they were breaking the law, and expressed concern about standards at more than half of trusts. Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital Trust said it had noted the QCQ's findings and made improvements. Catherine Murphy, Chief Executive of the Patients Association, said grieving relatives often only found out about the existence of the DNR notice after their loved ones had died. This has been taken from the Telegraph on the 18th of October and has been edited. The Guardian reported in October that the Care Quality Commission's findings were exactly the same as those of a report commissioned by the Health Secretary in 1998. 13 years later, and nothing has changed. News in brief. Diabetes screening. GPs should go through their records and identify all patients over 25 who are at high risk of type 2 diabetes, in particular those of South Asian descent, says the National Institute for Clinical Excellence. Its guideline mark a massive expansion in diabetes screening, with NICE recommending GPs invite all patients identified as high risk for a blood test. People aged 75 and over, and those aged 25 to 39 from a South Asian background in particular, should also be encouraged to have a risk assessment. This has been taken from the Salix Newsflash on the 11th of the 11th 11. Health workers join nursing college. The Royal College of Nursing has voted overwhelmingly at its AGM in favour of allowing full membership for healthcare support workers. They will also have 2 seats on the RCN Council. GPs beat hospitals on drugs. Hospital doctors are failing to match GPs' efforts to contain prescribing costs, with drug spends in hospitals rising almost 3 times faster than in primary care, official figures reveal. In 2009 to 10, hospital prescribing costs rose by 8%, while the cost of prescribing in primary care rose by just 3%. This is despite hospitals increasingly pushing outpatient and discharge prescribing to GPs.